So, when it came to the awakening of Sun God Nika in One Piece universe, it was pretty safe to say that that was a paradigm shift for all of us. True, there'd been a little bit of build up to it, and in particular, if you go way back in the manga, there are little hints that, a liberating character had been present throughout history. But the funny thing is that while Gear 5 was something nobody could have anticipated, a lot of people are speculating that Gear 6 will overtake it, and it could be coming very shortly in the series. Now look, I get why partially this is such a, prominent theory in most of the community, because we always want to see our main characters, all of our characters really, getting constant upgrades. And to be fair, in One Piece, that happens more often than not. It's just really interesting that how people are interpreting what Gear 6 might be versus what I think it will be, and kind of a bit more of how it ties into the One Piece world. I mean, to look at that, really, let's take a quick look at how Nico was awakened. There had been previous upgrades that Luffy had always done with his abilities, whether it was adapting it to different situations or creating the gear system in the first place. Now, as many people point out, the gear system may have come off a little rushed originally because there wasn't a lot of lead up to it, but we accepted it pretty quickly, and it has been a mainstay and very well executed throughout the rest of the series. That having been said, Nika was a whole different thing. Unlocking Gear 5 pretty much shifted the entire dynamic of what we now know as the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. And because of that, when we're trying to estimate what the next upgrade might be, it's a little hard to say. I mean, if we're being blatantly honest, Gear 5 kind of seems like it should be the max for what this can do. And to a degree, I think it is, but there is a caveat to that, and I think it is, we look at how Gear 5 was awakened, in that it came up during his absolute worst fight, his fight with Kaido, a character that nobody thought he could beat. They didn't think they could beat them when we had 5 members of the worst generation. Of course, Big Mom was there too, but let's be honest, Kaido was the ever-present threat in that fight. He alone is a big deterrent for the world government and all the Marines. So when, Nika awakened during that fight, during that hopeless situation, and brought hope to everyone, that was a pretty definitive moment. And I think it wasn't just a massive power-up, it was a massive moment in storytelling. It's also, where we saw, Joe come back and try and break the walls, even though, Momonosuke didn't want him to do that yet, so that's still kind of on pause. There was a lot of story-related elements that kind of converged that moment, and in that way, I think we're going to get Gear 6, because when Luffy goes to Elbaf, we're going to learn a little bit more about Nika. And we know this because, we've seen hints at a sun god repeatedly throughout the series. We see it in Skypiea. We've heard it talked about a little bit on Little Garden with Dory and Broggy, but now Dory and Broggy are back, and they are talking about the fact that they say Straw Hat looks like their god, that he looks like the god of Elbaf. And I think that that's going to be very important, because I think when they get to Elbaf, perhaps Shanks will be there to explain this in person, but I think that whatever Gear 6 is going to be won't necessarily be a complete power-up. It's hard to picture how much stronger that ability could get in theory. What I instead think it's going to be is much more of a history lesson and a learning what that ability can fully do. So I think it's going to be more of a refinement of the principle than an execution of a new one. Similar to the way that, really, Gear 4 has its 2 different forms of Bound Man and Snake Man, and those 2 forms are really a refinement of what came before. So Gear 6 won't be an entirely new shakeup. It will instead, in my opinion, be Luffy gathering more experience with the ability and maybe figuring out how far he can actually push it, as well as how far Joy Boy might have actually pushed it in the past. If you're liking this video, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so I can keep bringing you more anime content. And if we look at it in the way that, he's going to awaken it and it's going to give him more powers, not in a grand scale, but instead in execution, similar to what he did with Bound Man and Snake Man, there's a lot of things he could do with this. Essentially, Luffy has been using cartoon physics for a while. Even before he unlocked Nika and before Gear 5, he was using, various aspects of his power to create Gear 3, which a lot of people do note resembles a lot of classic cartoons. And then even, aspects of Gear 2, the ability to essentially move faster by pumping your blood faster isn't inherently cartoonish. The fact that his body is made of rubber, it can take more damage than anybody else's, is. So he's always kind of had that aspect, but I don't think he's conscious of it. And to the point that we've seen, he seems to treat Nika more like a artistic expression than doing anything solid with it. He doesn't seem to really fully comprehend what he can do with Nika, and it's entirely possible that even though it is, supposed to be the ridiculous devil fruit, that if he were to learn the full extent of what he could manipulate with it, it could grow even stronger. I mean, I'm talking like full-on Looney Tunes. He might be able to access like hammer space, being able to pull certain items, weapons, even people out of nowhere. He might be able to do things like alter the landscape completely around him, like Looney Tunes style. There's a lot of aspects of those classic cartoons that I think are definitely tied into the inspiration for Luffy that we could see executed with this. We already kind of see it. We've seen him manipulate Kaido's physical form. We've seen him wrap and hold lightning in a way he should not be able to. But I don't think he's conscious of that. I think Gear 6 will more result from him learning how to do that deliberately. And if you thought that upgrade sounds cool, please go ahead and check out this video right here about what Devil Fruit I think Usopp might end up with and should end up with to make him as powerful as some of the other members of the crew.